Yeah, so I just wanted to share a little bit about worship and what it is and why we do it, just a little bit. And then my perspective really would be just from how it changes your perspective when you focus on Jesus. And so, um, really, when people think about worship, and I've heard this all the time, if you're not a believer, we are sort of always giving our life up to something. And worship really is going to be that sacrifice part of what you're giving yourself into, right? I'll explain it just in a little bit, but for everybody, we're constantly giving ourselves up to something, whether that's money, a person, our emotions, or feelings, and the future. It could be anything, right? But as believers, like whenever we think of worship, we think of just like the Sunday morning music and songs. But in reality, to me, worship is always going to be sacrifice, and that sacrifice means just me giving my life up to the Lord and just asking Him to do whatever He wants to do at any given moment, right? I've heard of this from Jen Johnson, but you know, um, she was being a mom in the morning, and then when she had to go lead worship, she's like, "Gotta put my worship hat on," or at least I think that was Jen. But the gist of it was that the Lord in that moment told this person, "You should have never taken that worship hat off." Because a lot of times we feel like in on Sunday mornings or some worship nights that we like have these like amazing moments with God where we just feel His presence and we feel Him being there in that room with us, right? Just being there present with us. Um, and we're like, oh, I never want to leave this place. I just want to worship God all my life. And the Lord is like, why do you stop worshiping me when you leave the doors, right? Um, like that act of like surrendering my heart and my everything to the Father and just allowing Him to move within me should be something that's a 24/7 thing. I remember when I first when like became a Christian and we were in a college group. Um, there was this crazy idea that like not idea we were telling ourselves that I'm not just supposed to surrender my heart to God just in an altar call. It should be an everyday thing. In the morning when I rise up, Lord, here's my heart. When I go to sleep, Lord, here's my thoughts. There's an amazing quote from Ray Hughes that says, "Whatever has my attention will have my devotion, and whatever has my devotion, I'll start sacrificing to." So imagine if you wake up in the morning with worry and stress about some big problem, right? And we forget that God is bigger than those things. Or For me personally, it was me thinking about the future and just like constantly asking God, what's next, God? Like, what do you have for me, right? Um, we hear this all the time too in the school that we focus so much on the gifts and not the giver. Um, and and it can happen the same thing when it comes to church on Sunday morning. Like Jesus, we're celebrating Jesus, and but we're so focused on the confetti and the lights and the music and all this stuff. And Jesus is like, "Hey, like this party is for me though." Like we have a tendency as humans to always like look away from the Father, and I go and I even like think about like when Peter was on the boat and he walked off in the water and he focused on Jesus, but the moment he looked away, he drowned. um, so I remember there was a one point in my life. This is when want to talk about the perspective where I was asking God, "What's next?" Right. That was it. I knew that He given me some dreams, and I was so focused on this one, these dreams that He had for me, and I knew that it couldn't be in this tiny little place where I'm at right now. Right. But there's a pastor. His name's Chad. Told me to bloom where I was planted, and I thought that was a good idea at first, and I was like, "Sure, that's nice and stuff." It's like like a good fortune cookie thing. But um, a few weeks passed by, and I was getting more frustrated, and I knew that it was because I kept focusing on the wrong things. And so I walked out of my apartment at that time, and I walked on the streets, and I honestly just made a left everything behind, my phone and everything. I asked God, like, Lord, I'm tired of thinking about all these other things that don't bring me any peace and joy at this moment. They're like frustrating me. I don't like not having the answers. So open up my eyes to what you're doing right now, and give me a new perspective to see the unseen in this place. Because if you have me here for a reason, Father, then I want to bloom as much as I can here and be good soil for you. So I'm going to bloom where I'm planted, Lord. And you have me here in this tiny little town, so use me. And the moment I made that prayer, like the next day, like a bunch of doors opened. Like a new job opened for me where I became the youth pastor of a church. And I had amazing opportunities. I met my wife here in northern Nevada, and And it all started just because my heart was being present to what the Lord was doing right in front of me. Um, Sometimes we can get so caught up in asking God, like, and being frustrated with the mundane things, right? And Lord, what's next? What's next? What's next? And the beautiful thing about our Father is that He's not only the God of yesterday or tomorrow, but He's the God of today and being present. He's Emmanuel, God with us. Um, so I don't know where you're at right now, and this is more of a message and a challenge, but I don't know where you're at right now. But if you're like worried about what's next and what's tomorrow, don't worry. Like, don't freak out. Like, trust God. There's a song from John Foreman that says, like, I stare at the flowers. I stare at the bird. I stare at my window and the birds are composing. Not a note is out of tune or out of place. I walk through the meadows and stare at the flowers, better dressed than any girl on her wedding day. So why should I worry? Why should I freak out? Because God knows what I need, and He does. And so let's stop ignoring Him and looking past Him to the waves of our inadequacies or our futures or fears or all these other things, and start worshiping and having, like, let Jesus have your attention so that He can have your devotion and so that He can have your everything. One of the verses that I've always held on to is in Matthew, and I forget the address right now, but um, if we take heart, for I will be with you even to the end of time, right? And whenever I think about eternity, this is a last note. Whenever I think about eternity, it's a scary thing, right? It's forever. And whenever I think about these all these other things, like the waves around Jesus, I get freaked out. But the moment I stare at Jesus, everything calms down. Everything brings me peace, and I can say, I can trust you with I can trust the Lord with today, and I can give Him my all because I know who holds my tomorrow, right? And that's Him. So, Amen.